2015 joint budget meeting with Town Council and Board of Finance, please come to order. I think we'll start with the pledge, even though it's not listed on the front here. So, the pledge in a moment. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. So I'd like to welcome everyone to the 2015-16 budget hearing process. In the past, my comments have been made the week before we started the department reviews, but due to the sketchy weather outlooks, we delivered everybody their budget information last week, and since you've had a chance to review, we'll get to the department updates in a few minutes. As outlined, I'm proposing a $99,335,370 budget for the 2015-16 fiscal year, which is a 0.08% spending increase. This breaks down to $36,245,346 for the town operating budget, which includes the debt for the Water Pollution Control Authority, the Board of Ed, and the town. $1,911,216 for town capital expenditures, and $61,178,808 for the Board of Ed. I've adjusted the Board of Ed's request by $400,000, and I'm recommending that amount from the internal service fund go towards the medical costs. And if you remember during the audit, even though we had already done that, the auditor recommended that that's what we do with the surplus for the ISF, so that was good, we're all on the same page. This year's budget would mean a tax increase of 1.75% if adopted as recommended, to the cost of maintaining our wonderful community, to the standards our residents have come to rely on. And so we'll keep our comments short and make them as we go along and come up with specific projects and programs in the individual departments. I think that'll be better than you trying to commit to memory everything I'm saying to you this evening. So I think as we go along, it's probably more helpful. So we'll start with the Finance Director update, which will include a discussion of bond debt, revenue, utilities, insurance, and all the other fringe topics. And so, Ray Jankowski.
Thank you, Mayor. Meeting number one.
Evening, Rick.
What I just handed out to all the members here is an updated P&L, the updated revenues and expenditures through today. You get a lot of inquiries during the budget process, because the budget book that you have has expenditures and revenues through December 31st. So I will update those as the process goes through, so you can see the true expenditures that are taking place. I also handed out the revenue sheet, which I really wasn't ready to hand out tonight, because there are changes. You can see I've got pencil marks on it. There are changes that I know I'm going to have to make based on the first glimpse I got of the state budget. I think it was last Wednesday. What I could do with those revenues is match those revenues in those major categories of state grants that we're supposed to get to what I had budgeted. And at that point, I had budgeted $13,855,000. The state came in the first pass at $14,081,000, which said to me, to the best I can match them up, that I'm $226,000 to the good. And I said, whoa, that was one of my big worries. this is what I'm saying, the state revenues you have before you right now, the preliminary, that are gonna change. Again, as the mayor said this morning, when they open up the office tomorrow, they may change. But what I do want you to know is that they are subject to change, and I will alert you and update them as that happens. But again, those are not cast in stone as the state goes through their budget process. The categories that the mayor has requested appropriately that I report on tonight are the categories of debt, revenue, I just briefly appraised you on, utilities, insurances, and fringe topics. Bonded debt represents in this budget almost $8 million. Which includes, as the mayor alluded to in her opening speech, debt for the sewer plant, debt for the Board of Ed, and debt for the town. The utilities are almost $1 million. Those are electricity, the same utilities that we all have at our home. Insurance and fringe topics. Fringe topics are a little nebulous. I'd like to fringe, obviously, are overhead for carrying an employee on the books. Those include Social Security, those include Medicare, those include health insurance, with all regulation and mandatory language behind them. This is something you have to do, so fringe doesn't mean something that we're just giving away to make it look better. Fringe is something that is necessary in order to run any business, whether it be governmental or whether it be private. But the total of those categories equal almost $17 million, okay, budget-wise. That's a large chunk of our town operating budget. Not capital, but our town operating. So you want to focus. I'm glad that you are, and I'm glad that the mayor opened with these categories. You need to focus and make sure that these are the areas that you're going to try to control to the best of your ability. And these are not areas that management looks at just when budget time comes around. Negotiations, planning, dealing with brokers goes on throughout the year. Let's start with debt, right? Debt. We've got 8 million, almost $8.5 million worth of temporary debt out there right now. We're negotiating and we're planning throughout the year of what we're going to do with this stuff. These are debt that was issued by the town, by this board, by both boards, by the people, for projects that they felt they wanted. It's temporary borrowing right now, and we've gone on some of those categories, we've gone longer than is allowed under regulation and rules when you borrow money. Every time you borrow money, there's rules and regulations behind it of tax exempt money. Okay? When you borrow tax exempt money, let me be clear about that. Borrow your own money, they don't some of this money has not been spent according to the guidelines and reasons beyond our control. The project came into more than we anticipated, we didn't have enough money. Some of this stuff will be coming forward to this board, both boards in the near future, of what we intend to do with this. But again, we are, Mayor, myself, our finance advisor, our bond counsel, are meeting throughout the year. All right, we're watching the markets, we're watching this, we're watching that, to see what is the best time for us to turn this debt into the permanent debt, or whatever, the most opportune time to save the best, do the best for the taxpayer, for the town and the village. Utilities are no different than the utilities that you have to deal with in your everyday household. So we're dealing just in the magnitude of hundredfold of what you're dealing with. Electricity, we're dealing, negotiating with brokers. Constantly, brokers are approaching us, there's something opening up in the market, we need to, there's something going on in Istanbul, whatever. Maybe you ought to take a look at this, maybe you ought to look at that. Utilities you'll see this year, in the detail, we were off kilter with the Board of Ed. The Board of Ed had a different contract further than we did. Most of us here know that the more volume you have, the more cost-effective contract for whatever you're doing. You're going to get the most cost-effective price. So the town had to take a contract for 7 months, I believe, until November 2015, in order to coincide with the Board of Ed contract ending in November 2015, thereby giving us the volume for about 2 years, which is already in process. So again, the planning for these categories is going on a constant basis. And these categories represent a good portion of your operating budget. Your insurances, same thing, we're negotiating throughout the year. We're negotiating with our health insurance, we're negotiating with our life insurance, we're negotiating with our workman's comp insurance. We're trying to mitigate the claims that we have in workman's comp. We're having safety classes, we're having all of the above to try to minimize these costs. Some of these insurance costs, again, as many of you know, is in your own life, being able to deal with what you need to provide, are very challenging. And you have the ACA. You've got to deal with that. And that is constantly changing the horizon and what we need to look at, what we need to do, what can we do in the future. I mean, we're out there looking at when the excise tax, what you call it, the penalty tax, 2018 is going to hit. What can we do now in 2015, 16? Mitigate some of that cost. Right? So again, these are not just being looked at when budget time comes around. These are being looked at by management, by consultants, by advisors on a constant basis throughout the year. Now I gave you some of the proof of that, of what I'm saying, to lend some credence to what I'm saying, is that the total of those categories, again totaling almost $17 million out of $36 million in the town's operating budget, have increased a combined amount of $34,000 from last year to this year. So to me, that says those categories have been managed by the people that have been charged to manage those costs. Happy to answer any questions people may have on individual items within those budgets.
Okay, hang on, Beth?
Well, first, before I start with the questions, I did just want to compliment the town and the management of the funds. The audit was spectacular, and it couldn't have gotten to that point without all the work that you've done and your departments, and the departments you work with. So, thank you for your
And the
effort.
rest of it down.
Absolutely. So, I just wanted to pass on that congratulations. One of the questions I had, I know we always set aside some money because of union negotiations, just so everyone's aware, which unions are up for negotiation in the next budget period? Do you know?
Teamster and ASME.
Teams are in town?
And the police union hasn't been settled yet,
Okay.
Yeah.
so that carries forward.
I think Aspen's the only one that's settled right now, I think.
But you got the other ASME, there's two
Oh, the
ASME.
library Aspen,
And then you have the Teamsters
Teamsters,
coming up, and the police carry forward from last year.
Okay.
Mm.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate
Thank you.
that.
Frank?
Oh,
Sorry.
I
Sorry.
apologize. I had some questions just on the telephone line item. Should I leave those for Kendrick?
No, telephone, because I probably know what it is.
Okay. I just noticed that we now have an additional 2 items of maintenance and network innovations. Do you know what those are about?
The new phone system that we're implementing. You will notice,
So that was the increase of $16,000.
right, but you have a decrease of $13,000 in the town hall capital account for paying for the maintenance on the old phone system. So you've got an
Okay, so you
incremental
just
cost
moved
of
it.
about $3,000.
Over there.
So it'll be 3,000 to have the new system.
Gotcha. Thank you. I was just curious as to where that's coming from. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Frank?
Yeah, the bond debt was $8 million, I got a little confused. Is $8 million the total bond debt, or is the short term that you were referring to?
The $8 million is the short-term debt that is out there right now.
Short term meaning 1, 2 years, 3 years?
Bands,
okay.
basically 3 years. After 3 years, you start running into obligatory
Okay,
payback.
so the $8 million that you're talking about in
That's
bonds
just
is short term? It
That's
just,
the short term, that's what we have to deal with right now. You'll see it in your budget, you'll see that there's 350, back to debt again. Debt is, last year to this year is up $350,000. And we're all saying, oh, I thought we gotta pick up the sewer debt and everything. No, yeah, you are. But the $350,000 in the debt from last year to this year is principal payments on temporary borrowing because we haven't met some of the guidelines. There's also another $250,000 in the debt line to convert that $8,240,000 into permanent debt in July of 2015. So now we're talking about $600,000. The rest that's why the 350,000 is a net increase from last year to this year in the debt. Okay, and what happened with the sewer debt? Well, okay, the sewer debt has always been budgeted 100% in the debt expenditures. Because I need to assure the bond, the holders, that the sewer debt will be paid, paid of the town. Where you're gonna see the impact on the sewer debt is that on the revenue side of the operating transfer coming in to support the debt in the general fund is not there, that's down 500,000. So that's where the impact of the sewer debt comes in, not in the expenditure side, but in the offset of the revenue side.
Thank you.
Thank you. Walter?
Ray, I think I understand it since I'm in the elderly group, but quickly, can you just explain again the elderly tax relief, what that does, or is that a town grant, or in the category of other?
Are you talking on the revenue sheet, or are you talking
Yeah.
about the elderly?
Oh, I'm sorry, the revenue.
That's the state elderly, that's what the state gives us as a rebate on our elderly tax relief.
Ah, okay.
And that's a different program than the one we have.
Different than the
too.
town, you got a state and you got a town.
Ah, okay. You want to qualify?
I don't think so,
All
Walter.
right. Okay.
Other questions at this point? Ray, did you want, now Ray will be available here as we go through, as you all know, but for some of you newer people, he'll be here, so, and also if you have questions you think of later, send them to me and we'll make sure that the departments get those and we can get them back to you, so. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 4 would be the discussion of the legal budget. And if you look on your agenda sheet, the blue one, it'll give you the page number.
Good evening. I'm Randy Development, Town Attorney, Town Attorney since 2003. This year's budget is essentially flat. We have a variety of situations, but we're in good shape vis-a-vis litigation at this point. We have one threatened, we have one in litigation, which is being defended by PERMA, and we are only essentially monitoring that. We have one zoning, and we have one zoning case which we just won, and at the trial level, and I'm waiting to determine whether, to hear whether they're gonna appeal it. That appeal is not a right, that appeal is a certiorari type appeal. They have to request certification from the court in order to appeal that to the appellate court. There's no merit to that appeal. So I don't anticipate that that should happen, but I don't want to let you know that it hasn't happened until the appeal is very long. So in any event, those are what's pending now. There are 2 negotiations coming up, labor negotiations, which speaks to obviously the labor legal budget, personnel legal. One, the police is pending now. Police is in negotiation right now, and there are 3 grievances pending at this point. Variety of grievances, not all with the police. I think there's 2 with the police. Essentially, the town is in excellent condition concerning its legal issues. I don't have a great concern. We have 2 major tax appeals that are pending, and they're in suit now, which we anticipate having obviously suitable experts, as we always have in those cases. And that will be those will be significant expenditure because there's significant revenue at risk on those. Although that we're pretty confident in the way it's being approached at this point concerning the defense of them. With that, I'll leave any questions. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Beth?
I noticed on the legal assessors line, you brought it up by 20,000. Is that in anticipation of reassessments?
No, that's in anticipation of the expert that we're gonna need to try this case. To try
Okay,
the
so
main
that's directly related to an
Yeah,
open case now?
exactly.
Okay,
That case is not gonna come to trial until after July.
okay, and is that the same, you've got a legal ZBA increase of 3,000?
Yeah, that's minimal, but that reflects the additional activity that's happening since the recovery, or the purported recovery has taken effect.
Okay.
So we anticipate that might be necessary without coming back to the council.
Other questions on legal? All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Thank you, well.
Item 5 is the registrar budget for fiscal year 2015-16. We have Bob Driscoll here tonight.
Good evening, everyone.
Excuse me, boss.
Page 98. You want to get this updated? The registrar's budget is basically the same of last year. A couple of changes. In the materials and supplies, we've been budgeting for years for memory cards. As of last year, the LHS, which is the company that provides us the tabulator service and the cards and all, had tested and developed and finally started selling permanent memory cards, which we bought, was set last year, which we used for the first time in November. They worked very well. We didn't have any failures, which we've had numerous with the old cards. So what we're going to do is go ahead and purchase another set. There's one type that you use for elections that have names on it, and another set we use for the budget, which is basically yes, no. They're different type cards. So we had some money that we've had in the budget this year. I cut the amount by $2,000 because we don't need to keep buying cards, and I have enough money between this year and next year, hopefully, to be able to purchase another set of cards, and after that, we don't have to buy any more, hopefully, period. The other changes is the maintenance agreement for the tabulators went up from $3,100 to $3,200. So, and as we all know, the Pettibone School facility will be closing, and that's one of our polling places. So at some point in time, and we think probably the point in time is going to be the election next year, that we're going to have to change polling places. We've talked to the Odd Fellows, and they agreed to let us rent their facility, so to speak, for a nominal fee, I would say, of $500 a year. And that would be whether we have, 2 elections or 5. I mean, it's basically for the year. The parking seems to be adequate there. Obviously, it's very accessible on Route 7. It's in the right district, and we thought that was a good change. It would be easy for people to get to, and with the anticipation that Pettibone will not be available at some point. I think that the savings in whatever we pay for security on the day with police and all for an election day is probably dramatic compared to the $500. So I think it's a good investment, and it'll work very well. That's basically the changes that I have in the budget. Any questions?
Thank you, Beth.
Thank you. I just had one question in regards to the polling place rental. So there was no town-owned building within that region that we could use instead of
Not
renting out?
that was feasible that we could see.
The other thing too is this makes this ideal with regard to the security measures that we now have in place in the schools. It was sometimes creating a little bit of a problem for people to access the buildings with buzzers and additional police officers and trying to segregate the public from where the kids were, because we don't always have that as a day that's closed. So they'll be able to get right in the building here, and our insurance does cover that day, just so you know.
Yeah, it's a ground level. There's no steps or stairs to get in, so it's easily handicap accessible. So it just seems to work. So I thought that was a good way to go for our future. You're welcome.
Looking into that.
Anything else?
Barbara?
Hi.
You may not be the person to ask about this, but under supplies, I was,
Barbara, I can't hear you.
I was helping to run the polls at the last election and also the one before, and the ink on those printouts is very, very light, and you can barely read them. And it was at 2 of the stations that I would say had the most, the lightest was, well, the one I did was Sarah Noble. And there was
Well,
one other one, it escapes me.
I can answer your question.
Oh, you can?
Yes, I can.
I was hoping it would get fixed before the next.
Well, I believe we had fixed all of them,
Okay.
because we had cartridges that had black ink in them, okay? And for some reason, those cartridges print very lightly at times. We found out that they, once again, had come up with a better solution, and they now have cartridges with purple ink in them, and they print very dark and very well. So I think we've transformed pretty much all of our tabulators
Oh,
over
wonderful.
to purple ink from black.
Thank you very much.
So, in the last election when we did it, we had much better clarity, if you will, on the tapes, so. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Under supplies. Any other
Yeah.
questions?
No?
Okay.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Bob, thank you, Bob.
Item 6 is the tax assessor budget for 15-16, which is page 18 and 341.
Hello, everyone. I'm the tax assessor. I don't know where you want to begin.
So why don't you start on page 19 with an update on personnel and roll into,
Okay. The personnel is, the only difference in personnel is the fact that the ASME increases and, the technician is a shared position with the tax collector's office. So I have put in 80% and the tax collector's office gets 20%. That's how we are calculating the salary for that. We share the technician with the tax collector when she needs it. It's not like a regular hour or regular hours every week, it's just when they are needed. So that's working out pretty good that way. Other than that, personnel is what it is. The overtime is the same, right on the same page. The overtime is the same, $500. Like to have at least that much, especially with the volume coming up. We might be moving that. Property tax audits. $10,000 a year, we'll do 20 audits of personal property businesses. This past year, we gained $69,393 actual in tax revenue. That's without the interest that the tax collector has to collect on those. Like I said, we do 20 audits a year, and what it is, it's 3 years back, so this year it was 11, 12, 13. And it seems to be working out pretty good. We're getting extra tax revenue, although it's getting harder and harder for the audits. I think that the businesses are actually catching on to the audits. Well, they are filing better than they ever have before. So I think it's helping to know that they could be audited. Office supplies, I'm leaving the same. We do a lot of printings, the grand list. The grand list is like 5,000 pages. OPM reports, INE reports, it's a 3-page report. I sent out 900 of them just recently. And we pay for the paper out of this account. Personal property declarations are to come out of this account also, finding the grand list every other year. So it's not just office supplies that this is part of. Plus the DMV online access comes out of supplies also.
thank you, Frank.
Yeah, I'm just curious, on the 20 audits, how do you determine those?
They're random. I go through the personal property grand list, and if I see that one is really low compared to another business similar to that business, or if someone has not filed a declaration for years and years and is paying the penalty, it tells me that, even with the penalty, you don't have enough on there.
So that's not random?
Well, it is kind of random. I mean, I don't look for certain businesses.
I know, but you don't say,
Well, I do have.
put your hand in the
Yeah,
thing.
well, I wanna make it worth it. wanna make it
Okay.
worthwhile,
Yeah.
so if I see that
That was
someone,
my point.
okay,
And because you could pull out Kimberly Clark, they do them, and then you do London Powell. There's a big difference in the cost of the audit.
well, they're $500 each. It's-
Really?
Yeah.
No matter how big the company is?
Well, so far, yes.
Let's not wake them up.
Well, I'm not saying that if we did Kimberly Clark, or, something like that, anyway.
I was just curious how you came up with
But,
that.
yeah, that's it.
Deb?
On the printing requirements, are these legally required documents that you have to print, or is there any savings that could be had through electronically producing them rather than printing the documents physically?
Well, some of the OPM reports actually we do electronically now, but I have to, print the grand list. There has to be a printed abstract of the grand list every year.
Okay.
The INE reports, I have to send them out. I don't know how to contact everyone by email. It's available, the forms are available online, and they're available for us to send through email, but I need to get them to the people, and that's the same with personal property declarations. We don't print the personal property declarations. Yayo prints, the declarations every year for the towns at a very low cost, but it does come out of supplies.
Okay.
We do electronic what we can, when we can.
Okay. And are businesses aware that they could opt to an electronic version rather than have a printable version?
Yes.
Okay, that's great. And then I just had a question on the $1,000 increase on the training programs.
Oh,
Do you have any details on that, as to what the extra?
the reason that I requested an increase was because this past year, we won't be going to the to UConn, this coming June rather, out of this league. We won't be, none of us will be going to UConn. Next year, two of us at least are planning on going, because we are coming up with our recertification. So this is going to be due in a couple of years, so we're going to be using considerably more the upcoming year.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And then, I think we had something on rebound.
Okay, rebound, I'm actually asking for $40,000 this year. I don't know whether that's been changed on that or not, it wasn't changed on that.
It's, yeah.
So it's actually 40,000, and the reason for that is because I have, 142,400 in a contingency account, which I'm going to have access to when it's needed. I also wanted to let you know that I'm going to have, an MAI appraisal review of several of the bigger accounts, that is included in this budget, simply because I'm hoping it will save maybe some court appeals and some money, because we have that certified appraiser, an appraisal basically done on some of these accounts, then they may not be so quick to export. And that's it for evaluation. It's, I'm asking for $40,000 this year. I have $25,000 that I carried over. I have $34,000 for this year, and we're starting to get really into it now, so we're gonna be really starting to need some of these funds.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
If you think of some later, we can forward them. Discussion of tax collector budget.
Evening, Kathy.
Good evening, everyone. Kathy Reynolds from the Tax
think it's page 3,
It's page 14 and
Page 14 and
335.
335.
This year, our budget has increased a little bit, approximately 3,000, due to the increase in cost for printing in-house. We have approximately 48,000 bills, and some of them are transmitted electronically, but the bulk of them, the motor vehicles, is our big production. And the cartridges and the paper and the envelopes and all this has, of course, increased. However, that would be one of the increases. There's a few others in there, and perhaps like to start on page 14 or 15, what is it?
14.
14.
So the difference between last year and this is about 3,005. Majority of it is in the materials and supplies, and also the state of Connecticut motor vehicle assessment to the town. It seems to be growing every year. We're currently a car town, and there's a lot of years, every year there are more and more cars, and the state of Connecticut knows it, so they keep raising the assessment against the town. Yes. And also we have the security on our office to guard the town's money, and that fee has gone up. And also we have sometimes to get new batteries or new trips or things like that. So there's been little gradual increases.
Any questions for Kathy? No? Looks good.
On page 17, we do have a little increase also in the education budget. We want to keep on classes for our lovely ladies that work with us, because we like to see them keep up with the statutes and all that. And also I go to meetings to try to keep my head on board with what's going on in the state. And that's about the sum total of our increases.
That'd be $600 takes care of all that training.
Training, yes. It's offered seasonal, and they're like 6 weeks.
You're in education, you know how expensive it is.
$600.
Yeah.
Sounds like a steal.
They're like 6 or 8 weeks, 1 day a week.
Well, I have no problem with that. Wow.
Well, come on.
Any other questions for Kathy? Thanks, Kathy, appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Have a good
Kathy.
evening.
You too.
Item 8 is probate budget. Page 84. And also in your supplemental, page 1.
Good evening. Marty Leggett, probate judge for the planning district. So this is the budget that we're presenting this year, and as presented for your convenience, we've actually broken it down for the mayor and the finance director. It's roughly a 3% increase for the budget. But what we've done is it's a $20,540 budget proposal, and the way that we worked it out, it's basically furniture and fixtures is about $2,533, and then materials and supplies is $18,007, and of that amount, Milford share is $9,117. The rest of the money is from the surrounding towns, and the monies that we get from the surrounding towns, it's all statutory as to what the reimbursement is for Milford. So what happens is that we'll send those requests out to the town so that Mr. Jankowski gets that money in a timely manner, hopefully. Sometimes he does remind us that some of the towns might be a little slow in sending those payments, but we do stay on them to get that money into our finance department. Just to let you know a little bit about the court itself, we've been very busy this year. We've had a lot of interesting hearings. We've had the mayor's been gracious enough to give us both this hearing room downstairs, and a few times we've actually had to use the hearing room across the hall because we've had a large number of interesting matters that require larger spaces. And not only that, some of the larger hearings might be a little more contentious, so that requires police presence, and the police don't like having the hearings in my office, but they prefer to be up here. So we'll have the hearings up here. And basically, too, what we're doing is we do go to the other towns on a regular basis, just to let them know what the court does. And as a result of that, we also go to our senior center here and the other local senior centers on a regular basis. Usually Fridays, because that's sort of a slower day for the court as far as hearings, but we do have hearings just about every day of the week. And when we do have larger hearings, we do arrange with the mayor's office in case there's something else that's going on. We do have a great rapport between the mayor and our office to just run across either email or at the last minute we have to go upstairs or the mayor will figure out where to tell us to go. And that's what we do. So,
Nice approach.
so that's usually what we would do. But that's all we have for our presentation today.
Anyone have any, Frank?
Yeah, I'm just curious, your district, your jurisdiction is based basically in Milford?
That's correct, right.
Do the other towns pay us for using this facility?
Right, they pay a percentage.
Okay. Make sure they're not getting away.
Thank you. Larry?
Why did the state budget cuts or whatever
Right.
they're trying to do, how's that going to affect?
Well, that was a nice, pleasant surprise we got over the weekend to read in the paper. What we're doing is we're trying to educate a lot of the individuals that might be involved with the budget that goes through the state process. So we have to get in touch with our local legislators, our senators, to let them know. Basically, our probate fees themselves, our budget for the system is about $46 million. Of that, we actually, the last couple of years, there is an appropriation from the state, but from the probate courts themselves, we generate about $31 million in the recent years. So the general fund would appropriate about $10.25 million back to the probate system. But for the past several years, we've always had the state sort of sweep our budget at the end of the year and take those funds. So it's not really, when they're saying there's subsidies, really what's happening is that favorite word everybody at the table, unfunded mandates, where they're saying a lot more cases are by either a fee waiver or just other areas that are going to be thrown into the court. And as a result of that, we need to have the general fund cover some of the attorney's fees or conspirator fees, guardian ad litems, just to protect individuals' rights. And that's where we're hoping that by getting the message out as far as what the court's really working on, because we cover a lot of things that really surprises a lot of folks as to what the probate court actually does. We do everything from adoptions to name changes. We do guardianship for the intellectually disabled. We do conspirators for individuals. And a lot of times those are the folks that really need the services of the court, and oftentimes they don't have the assets to take care of that. So the court itself is based on a system where a lot of the monies that we do generate does actually come from the states and trusts. The other things, if I get a children's matter in, and it might be a termination of parental rights or even guardianship, so he comes in and files a $150 filing fee. That'll be all the money that the court gets in, is that $150 to open up that matter. And I could have hearings for a year on $150. So the state picks up the attorneys, guardians, anybody that's involved in that whole process. So sometimes you've got the state paying for the attorney for the mother, the father, the child, and the filing fees. So, you know, the $150 gets spread out quite a bit. So it's kind of an odd system, but that's the way it's always been in operation. So we're hoping that what they've done is they've had some grants for kinship or respite that we're able to get people monies from the state, and that would be one of those subsidy areas. But the maximum that some grandparents or families might get is $2,000 per year. And that's not really a lot of money to take care of a child. But, you know, we're really working on hopefully educating them as to what we really need and what we do. Because that seems to be, you know, a sore point with, you know, that lack of education. So I hope that kind of answers the question.
Do I understand that you actually generate a profit that the state saying?
That's correct. Yes, right. What happens is that we take a, the court actually, the court used to be set up so that every quarter they would ask us what work you're doing, and then we would pay them quarterly. And then, as a result of consolidation, as soon as some matter comes into the court and a bill is paid, it's instantaneously reported on my computer and the state's computer. So it goes right to the Bank of America, right to the state's coffers. So they're fully aware of all the money that we're getting. So a lot of the things that they're asking us to do are programs that the state has requested us to do. So we are making money, but it's just a matter of the state putting more and more into the kitty as to what our money is supposed to be covering. That is what is really an issue at this point in time. So that's my job, to go and lobby our legislature and explain to them how the system works and why, it really is. I think the newspaper article wasn't really that bad of a representation of what we do. It's a lot of social services that people aren't aware of what we do. We try to help out a lot of the folks around town that might need a conservator, or just to try to straighten them out. That, you never know what might happen to somebody. We've had situations where people are just dumped at a nursing home. Who's gonna take care of them? So we have to start that process to get them conservator and get them taken care of. And a little bit of medical care, they might be back in the community. But it's really unfortunate that a lot of times, some of it is, for the ambulance too. I mean, how many times do you get called for the same person? Several times. And not just New Milford, but it'll be our surrounding local community ambulances that'll come down and say, oh, you've got the mutual aid or assistance, and you're dealing with those same folks. So we try to figure out how can we best help that individual to get the help that they need. That'll help our community and them. So that's part of what we do. And we do work closely with the senior centers. That's one of the reasons why I make sure we go there, so that we know that the social services directors know us, the senior center people know us, and the seniors know us. Because sometimes they'll come in and they'll say, yeah, I've got a problem, but I don't know how to resolve that. What can I do to get money that I think I'm owed? Or I've got a problem with Social Security. So we can kind of direct them in the proper manner to get the monies that they're due. So, it's just not the same old, wills and trusts that people seem to think that we do.
I think you need more publicity in the town.
Well, we're gonna definitely
Because a
work
lot
on
of-
that, right?
I'd have to guess that, 3/4 of the town has no idea what you do.
Right, and that's one of the reasons why I'm trying to get out to the senior centers more often, and, even a lot of night meetings, go to all the different, a lot of times we go to, the senior centers or the nursing homes and rehab centers, because most of the folks that are gonna be taking care of their parents or trying to figure out what they need to do are working during the day. So we're trying to get into those facilities, to say, look, this is what you need to be aware of, and how we can best take care of that. And unfortunately, in this economic time too, what we're facing is that a lot of times people will come in and, they'll have a power of attorney that someone's been taking their money, assisting them, and then we can do accountings and try to get those monies back, or, have the person held accountable, either by referral to the state's attorney's office or elder abuse, and get that resolved, so that these people they work their entire lifetime for their monies, not for the benefit of somebody else. So it really is, as you said, something that we're really trying to get out there and educate people. And it's the whole gamut. We've gone to do seminars on guardianship of intellectually disabled, because that's another huge area that people are just falling through the cracks. They don't realize what services are out there for them. So, we've done a lot of different seminars, try to go on cable shows, and just try to educate people as much as possible. So I'll be coming to a local channel soon, no. But that's something that I think that's part of the job. It's just, as you said, we really have to educate. And as you know, I go and teach the ambulance folks, and, try to let them know legal liability, but also include to them local police departments as to what does a conservatorship entail. What should they look for, powers of attorney or healthcare directives, anything like that. So it's really important that we're out there and trying to get everybody on board. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions for the judge? Okay, thanks again, Marty.
Thank you.
Marty, thank you.
We didn't add any other items, and we still have public participation. For the rest of the participation will be in the beginning, but tonight, since we hadn't yet discussed anything, I put it at the end, so is there public participation at this point? Then we will recess till tomorrow night at 7:30.